Hello, fellow parents and educators. Thank you for joining me at Education Evolution, where we are disrupting the status quo in today's learning models. We talk about present-day education, what's broken, who's fixing it, and how. I'm Dr. Maureen O'Shaughnessy, your host and founder of Education Evolution and the Microschool Coalition, where we are fiercely committed to changing the narrative, to reimagining the education landscape and creating learning that serves all children and prepares them to thrive. If you are new, welcome to the podcast. Please subscribe on our website to get it delivered to your inbox weekly. If you've been around a while, have you left a review? Hi, Jacob and Casey. So good to have you.
Good to be here.
Listeners, today I'm chatting with two great teachers from Leadership Preparatory Academy. This is my home base. And this human-centered microschool was opened in 2013. Jacob is our English teacher and Casey is our social studies teacher. Students say the positive relationships with our teachers is what makes Lead Prep such a happy place to learn. And that takes a lot of intentionality. So let's hear from Casey and Jacob how to make this happen. Let's start by hearing why you teach and what parts of the job make the hard work of personalizing with no set curriculum worth it. So why do you teach and what makes it worth it?
Yeah, I think the really simple answer for me is the students. I think I just get so much energy in terms of coming into a classroom and hearing some excitement and seeing the different things they create. And I think more than just teaching, the mentorship aspect. I think I grew up and felt really lucky, whether it was a teacher, a coach, or someone else in my life that really, went above and beyond in terms of what, not just teaching me things of the right way to do, but was there for me and was able to listen to me or was able to ask me a question or just kind of give 5 minutes of attention more. I think those things really changed kind of and shaped who I am, in getting a chance to maybe give back or maybe to be a part of those moments is so important and really just like brings me alive with the students.
I love that piece about mentorship, Casey, and the people that have mentored us. I agree. Jacob, why are you doing this hard work and this crazy job?
Yeah, I think that, I'd start by saying that I sort of stumbled into teaching. It wasn't something that I grew up knowing that I would do. I think that teaching sort of helps me be the person that I want to be. I think that there's sort of nothing that puts you into being a good role model more than having a bunch of young people relying on you and looking to you. And I think that, those moments of seeing a student realize that they're capable of something that they didn't realize they were, or seeing that they've grown into, being able to experience that same thing of being the person who they want to be, and being able to help young people along on that process, is really rewarding.
I love that. Helping us be our best selves. Jacob, a lot of kids are reluctant to write. Can you relate, and how do you help them with that obstacle?
Yeah, I can relate to a lot of my students. I'm an undiagnosed dyslexic. I think since I've been teaching and working with students who are dyslexic, seeing that all of the things that they struggle with are things that I struggled with when I was a kid. So I totally relate to a lot of the challenges involved with, spelling and remembering grammar rules and all of that stuff. I think to me, it really comes down to good writing is good thinking and just being able to express that. And that's something that everyone is capable of. Yeah. So a lot of students who think that they don't like writing or don't like writing at this point in their lives, it's really clear that they haven't been able to find the moment or the the environment in which they're able to express themselves, and that it's all about meeting the student where they are and trying to get them to see that whatever's going on in their brain is something worth sharing with someone. And that if they can get to that point, whatever challenges that they have, is something that's worth trying to overcome.
I love that. And I've seen you work your magic with kids and let them go with their passion for poetry or keyboard if they need to, or write it on a Post-it, just a little idea at a time. So, Casey, you have a knack for creating projects that connect students to passion and purpose. Can you share a student story of one of these projects?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I think it's also a step process. I mean, I think we don't like to admit it, but we always think about ourselves first. And I think part of the process of creating connections with the communities are really impactful projects have been allowing people to see, one, how they've been influenced by other people or how they've been positively impacted by their community, and then allowing them to take that kind of like moment of joy and then realize that they can kind of turn that to other people. I mean, so one of my kind of like project prompts was like kind of how can you positively impact your community? And then students got to think about, well, what is my community? Who am I in that community? What other communities am I a part of? And then putting that kind of forward motion of like, how can I positively impact that? And I think one that really stuck out to me was one, Frank decided to design kind of these coming out greeting cards where he mentioned like, oh my God, you go down to your drugstore and you see, happy birthdays, anniversaries, you got a new dog. Like, what about like, hey, you just came out. Like, let's celebrate this moment. And I love that too, because I think he also thought about one, like, how can I create artists too and empower artists on that? So then they get to have their artwork shown in the LGBTQ community. But then also like, how can we make this like you coming out is also like a birthday, like something that people do. And it's not this secret hidden behind thing that's like, oh shoot, like, I gotta like go pick it up in aisle 3. I think there's like so many different layers of that I think is so creative. And then watching him kind of build prototypes and make projects, I think I was really excited about that. I think also Felix comes to mind of just saying like, hey, I love hiking. Part of my community is this outdoor hiking community. Like, and I've kind of just taken these trails as like my activity. And then he thought about, well, how can I make, hiking on these trails more enjoyable for everyone who kind of joins me on this trail? And that was the kind of question that spurred him of like, well, every time I go hiking, I'm going to just like kind of bring a bag and start picking up trash, picking up these little things. And I think both on those kind of brings so much joy. Also like kind of creativity of things that I would not have thought of. Yeah, I think those two really came to mind.
Yeah. And we all know when we're passionate about it and feel like we have this purpose, it's so much easier to engage. And watching the kids, they were so engaged with that. And I see that engagement again this year. And I guess I want to step back. So you guys have a history from being Washington, Oregon high school ultimate Frisbee rivals, and it's progressed. And now you two are weaving your classes together for full days of instruction. Tell us a little bit about this journey.
I mean, I guess it'll start with high school. I mean, I think it hasn't really been said. Jacob is probably one of the top ultimate players in the world right now.
Yes.
And when, just one coming off a national championship where he caught the winning goal, but a long, long time ago in the early 2000s.
You're so old,
the trash talk. This is when the trash talk is starting.
No, Jacob and the ultimate Frisbee community, especially the youth community, is very small. And Jacob was clearly one of the best players in Oregon. And I was kind of one of the best players coming out of Seattle. And I think there was this like friendship and rivalry of, we also have like a similar play style. So we would always guard each other. And I just looked at just being a little older than Jacob, where I think I got the edge in most of our competition. But thinking about like, I'm not sure if Jacob knows. I don't know if Jacob knows, but like, I mean, just like literally like the hours I thought about the matchup and like the different things. And I think I really apply this to anything when you work on a craft to a really fine level, like really respecting the other people who kind of like craft that. And it was very clear that Jacob had worked on this craft of ultimate and was always trying to find little inches and tactics. And the same thing happened. I think we were lucky enough in 2008 to play on the Junior Worlds team together. And
impressive.
And I think it was this weird thing where we lost touch a little bit. I mean, we had some mutual friends and we would see each other every once in a while. But when this kind of like moment came together of saying, hey, let's like, you might be working with Jacob, I think it was odd, but also I knew exactly that we would work well together because of the same passion and competitiveness and like just curiosity that he brought to ultimate. And when we guard each other, I knew that I would see that as a coworker, as a teacher, in the way, he built community for his team and the way I tried to build community for my team. This is kind of the same thing that we do in the classroom. So I think that's been my, it's been so rewarding working with Jacob again.
That's so cool to hear. Jacob, what would you add?
I feel the same way. I know this isn't a sports podcast, but that matchup was definitely notorious. I think it's more than just, obviously we both felt it, but I think that was something that, if you ask any high school ultimate frisbee players in the Northwest what the top matchup was during those days, I think that was it. And I know, Casey was able to, I'll just say they always beat us, but I don't think it was because of the matchup. They had a very deep squad, but we were always going back and forth. And like you said, like we had mutual friends. Casey played a lot with my brother when you were living in San Francisco. So we always, we'd have contact, but I had no idea that he was, I accepted this new position teaching. I moved to Seattle, got this job, and, checked my email, and looking at that email, it said Casey Ikeda, also welcome to the new job. And I was like, wait, what? Casey's working here? And then all of a sudden we were teaching together, and it just sort of fit seamlessly. And, we work really well together, and it's been awesome, both in terms of our, our personal relationship and, in terms of, I can clearly say that I'm a better teacher because I work with Casey. And I know that since we've been able to combine and teach our lessons together and plan our lessons together, and plan for a full day instead of just, a 1 hour block, I can definitely say that our classes are better. And so all of that sort of works together in a way that feels really organic and really powerful.
It's so fun to hear your stories. And when we hired you, we didn't know that you'd been high school rivals or anything. In fact, I think you remember when we hired you, we had one position, and our parent, student, teacher team, we were like, we want them both, and we're not willing to rock, paper, scissors. We want them both. And we had to scramble and rearrange our budget. But it's like, no, we want them both. And now we have you, and it's so awesome. Interdisciplinary this year, you guys have really just upped the game in terms of kids being engaged and themes having a whole day to play out in different ways. Maybe you could share just a little bit of the beauty or what are some highlights of it, and also the struggle of interdisciplinary.
Well, I think a clear struggle is that when you're planning things together, it takes time to plan things together. I know a lot of, when I'm planning things by myself, a lot of ideas just sort of happen. I'll think about something when I'm in the shower or going for a walk or when I wake up. And, when I'm on my own schedule, I can think as I go and just make it happen. But when you're working with other people, there's all that whole layer of communicating and breaking down who's going to be responsible for what. And that can be a challenge. But I think that it has really paid off. I don't think it's that much more work. It just requires sort of being tuned in and being deliberate about when and how we plan. I think that the biggest thing for me is that it has vastly reduced the stress and I think improved the sort of the school day for students in terms of making sure that there is alignment with everything that we're doing. I think in the past, there was a lot of trying to squeeze as much as I could into my 1 hour period. The way that I sort of started with this job is trying to, so as a humanities teacher, trying to fit some level of content in with some certain writing skill. So for example, it might be religion and storytelling. And so we would read religious texts and talk about the meaning of different stories and how storytelling is used to talk about morals. But then there would also be all of these technical skills that I'd want to teach. I'd want to talk about a plot map, and I'd want to talk about, an exposition and using descriptive language and similes and metaphors. And it was, it got to the point that it's like, I can't fit this into an hour each day. And I think Casey was having the same thing in his history class of trying to fit in both those things. And all of a sudden, we now had a full school day that we were planning. And so instead of having to choose between, a content or a skill, we all of a sudden had time to unlock both. And that allowed our lessons to go so much deeper. And it didn't feel like we had to choose. It felt like we could do both and more.
I love that. The synergy piece you're talking about too.
Yeah, I mean, Jacob, when you said kind of squeezing, I felt like the day was always squeezed with time, and just to be able to have a little bit more flexibility, or even just allow our students to take something that we discussed in the morning, or that they wrote about in the morning, and bring it back in a discussion or in a writing piece in the afternoon. I think always when you have that hour, you're hoping that the question you introduced and then you talked about will then all get consolidated in this one little hour. And that's not how humans really function. I mean, sometimes when you had a really interesting discussion in the morning, that kind of changes how you interact in the afternoon and the thing you write. And the ability to do that over a course of a day with these students has just felt really rewarding. And I think giving the students also some more flexibility where they don't feel like they're getting squeezed every hour as well.
And again, but doing all that, so we're doing less in sense of not having to squeeze things in, but it ends up being so much more because you have the time to actually let it sink in and let it percolate and loop back around and add and attack from different angles. All of those things that just provide a way more rich experience for students.
Absolutely. The depth that you're getting versus skimming across the surface on a lot of topics and hitting it from so many levels. Parents and students both are loving it. Can you maybe talk about how you allow for kids' passion or interest? Give an example of their agency, how they get a voice and choice in some of the projects and processes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the kind of the one that I think we've been working on this quarter is the newsroom. Essentially, what we have is each week students are given kind of a very broad topic, whether it has been the election, COVID, or we even had weeks of just student interests. And then within that, they have to pitch us an idea, whether that's a video, a cartoon, an essay, an opinion piece, a news article they're writing. And then, this is the back and forth too, where we kind of also can push back and say, well, what is that pitch? What are you trying to get your audience to learn or get out of your pitch here? And then they then spend the week crafting and creating that assignment. And then I think the also fun part that we didn't really, we kind of thought about, but was also this thing when it all comes together. And it's not this a standalone video, but it's a video, but also there's articles that examine similar other things. Just today, the Lila wrote an article, there's kind of a theme of celebrities. Lila wrote an article about Harry Styles and him kind of using gender roles in fashion and how he was bending and blurring the lines. And someone also wrote a really great interview about Prince, a Prince fan, and he talked about how he was bending the line with fast. And those two things next to each other, again, like enhance and kind of create more depth for that kind of whole piece together. I think that's really, I think for me, really rewarding to see how student choice and creativity, but then can do really great individual work, but then also kind of like compared and next to each other, kind of add more depth to that individual work.
I love it. And I love that you had a purpose, you had an audience and a weekly production. So they're moving toward a target and not just doing an assignment that's going to float out there. So I know that the families and the kids have really enjoyed the newsroom and how that's evolved. It's turbo time now. And when Andrew Murata interviewed me on his Education, Leadership, and Beyond podcast, he used this feature, and it's so fun that I am stealing it. So thanks, Andrew. So quickly, Jacob, what's the last book you read?
So I just finished, I've been cruising through books since quarantine, which has been really great. But I just finished a book called My Tender Matador by Pedro Lamabel, who is a Chilean author. So if you've ever read Isabel Allende, very sort of similar style. But this novel is about a trans woman who falls in love with a Marxist revolutionary during the fall of the Pinochet regime in Chile in the late 80s. And yeah, it definitely has my highest level of recommendation. Great book.
Whoa, that sounds powerful. Casey, 2 inspirational folks in history you'd love to meet.
I think, well, I go back and forth where Malcolm X has always been someone that I've been very interested in and really love. But I think someone that I think is less well known is Yuri Kochiyama, a Japanese woman who was incarcerated during the war, did a ton of activism, and was actually there. There's kind of a famous picture of her holding Malcolm X when he was shot and assassinated. So had done a lot with the Black Panthers, and it's just also just a really cool lady. I have actually met her, and just a really sweet lady. So I want to give a shout out to Yuri. And then this is a very classic answer, but like FDR, I think is an interesting historical figure. I am really interested in Japanese incarceration, but also him during that time period of a very kind of, I think, pivotal moment in the U.S. history. He's always been a really interesting, fascinating character for me to look at.
Yeah. Jacob, favorite place to travel?
I think the place that sort of fits as being maybe the most powerful travel experience I've had was after high school. I took a gap year and lived in Ghana and traveled throughout West Africa, through Burkina Faso and Mali. I think that was very, very life-changing for me. I think also just bringing it more local since I've moved to Seattle, the North Cascades is just a place that I think even if I didn't live here, I would want to go back to over and over again. But I think sort of on top of that, I would say traveling to places that I haven't been. So my favorite place is probably somewhere that I haven't been yet, that I hope to be able to go to soon once quarantine ends, if it ever gets there.
Yes, I hear you. Casey, one TED Talk that inspires you.
I really like Brené Brown. I forget exactly what her TED Talk is, but I always think of her as like Dare Greatly. Yeah, I remember watching that and being like, oh my God, and I read her book, and yeah, I got on a little Dare Greatly kick.
Yes, I got to hear her in Seattle, and she was as amazing in person and so real. I'm with you on that. Jacob, biggest thing you wish folks knew about student engagement?
I think this is something that I've been realizing too, since I've been teaching the last few years, is just how much of it is related to mental health. I think that there are a lot of, I don't want to say tricks because I feel like that's maybe belittling it, but a lot of strategies and ways to design a class that encourage student engagement. But I think that it's really, I think every healthy child is going to be engaged in something. I think that mental health is something that over and over again, if a kid is struggling, it's gonna hold them back in that regard.
Absolutely. Casey, something positive that's come out of this COVID time?
I almost am changing my answer a little bit just hearing Jacob's answer, but I think our willingness to talk about mental health and the effect it has, and for us to articulate like even just like what we need in a time like this. I think it's when everyone is in like a really like, teetering on that edge of depression and feeling isolated, for us to really support and like just kind of like be more vocal about like, this helps me with my mental health, or this is something that's really important for me, for my well-being, and I need to do it, because I think we get into this pattern. So I think that has been something that's been kind of positive out of COVID.
I agree. And I think I love how the lead to prep teachers, you've all put making sure the kid feels safe and feels like they're cared for before the content. And those are trauma-informed practices, and you're doing it. And I think more teachers during this pandemic have had to look at the whole student and try and figure things out. And hopefully we don't lose that and just go back to dispensing content, because mental health is so woven in. Last question, something about you guys that people don't know.
I feel like I'm pretty transparent. I don't know that there's a whole lot out there that you didn't add this in the list of questions that was going to be, so.
Oh no. No favorite food or wonky bedtime story you need to read or anything?
There is not a single food that I don't like.
See, that's something we didn't know.
I'm pretty vocal about that, honestly, but yeah, I like everything.
I think there's I think there's a side of Jacob and I that the students or a lot of people don't know, is like, we kind of joke about how competitive we are, but there is like this like other gear of like fiery competition that I think the students have yet to kind of see. I think they've seen kind of us joking and pretending, but the kind of hard work, even in the craft of teaching, but there is like this fiery side, I think, to both Jacob and I.
Absolutely. You guys come across as really smooth, but to be competitive athletes, there has to be that edge. And then I always wrap up the interviews with a magic wand moment. So you guys, if you could put aside reality, if you two had a magic wand and could use it to transform what happens in classrooms, what would you wish for?
Yeah, I mean, this is maybe a little tricky. I think I wish I could remove, I feel like in classrooms, there's so many barriers and so many differences between the teacher and the student connecting on a personal level, or being able to see eye to eye as a person and people, and whether that's authority, whether that's having to teach to, your time limit in class, whether that's you're having a bad day, or you just had a bad conversation. So I wish I could like essentially like wave the magic wand, and when you entered the class, like kind of those barriers went away, and then that you were able to more easily just like see eye to eye with each other, teacher and student. And yeah, I think that would be really magical. I'm not sure what type of education would happen, but I think so much of that foundation just feels really exciting to me.
Absolutely. Jacob?
I think that if I had a magic wand, I would want every student to, like, right before they walk into class, have had an hour of exercise and an hour of therapy. If we had like 2 hours of those things before class started every day, I think the world would be a much better place.
You're saying students, so would you extend that to teachers as well?
Oh, 100%. I don't do that before every class, but I think I'm on a pretty good pace for that overall. But yeah, if I could extend that to other people in the world, I think that would be ideal.
Well balanced. I love it. You guys, thank you for joining us today, but also for the amazing work you do at Lead Prep. I appreciate both of you deeply.
Thanks, Maureen.
Thanks, Maureen.
Aren't they great? I love Jacob's tongue-in-cheek magic wand. We all need to move more and attend to our personal well-being, therapist or meditation, or whatever it takes to be centered, regulated, and ready to engage. Casey and Jacob are foundational in our micro school. Casey is the community relations officer and Jacob is the chief learning officer on the school's shared leadership team. Fancy terms for attending to the relationships of students, teachers, and beyond, and addressing progression in the academics. Most recently, Jacob helped us and took the lead on the creation of a holistic report card system that includes student goal setting and reflection, habits of success, and academic progress. Phew! It's a joy collaborating with them and Jess, our COO, on the shared leadership team. I'm pondering Jacob's statement that good writing is good thinking. That just seems like obvious and profound and overlooked all at once. I know he gets kids over writing hurdles by connecting with them and what they want to express. I also know kids feel valued by Jacob and know he believes their thoughts have meaning and are worth expressing and sharing. Relationships and trust are key to student engagement. Casey also uses relationships and trust to build on student concepts and get them to use processes to draw on their experiences and extend them with new learning. We all do better if we can anchor our learning to something from our past. I remember some of the projects where students were challenged to be a positive impact in their community. It was magical how engaged the students were, and their projects were so diverse and interesting. From a 6th grade girl wanting to help Greyhound rescue dogs find homes and her poster campaign, to a 12th grade student whose life had been rocked by the suicide of a close public school friend. This young man petitioned his school board and was able to get more mental health programming for his local high school as a result. Powerful learning and life experiences. Our National Association for Supervision in Curriculum Development, ASCD, has a whole child initiative. The one-pager link is in the show notes. Casey and Jacob's conversation hit on 4 of the ASCD's 6 whole child tenets. 1, each child enters school healthy and learns about and practices a healthy lifestyle. 2, each student learns in an environment that is physically and emotionally safe for students and adults. And we know relationship-based learning is critical to this goal. 3, each student is actively engaged in learning and is connected to the school and broader community. We see this happening all the time when individual expression and passions are supported in the learning. And 4, each student has access to personalized learning and is supported by qualified, caring adults. Yes, please. Authentic learning, beginning with students feeling safe and cared for, love and belonging, is the stuff that changes lives. Casey's magic wand? Remove barriers between teachers and students, connecting on a personal level. This is a theme I am hearing repeated from many educational innovators. Flipped learning leader John Bergman in episode 3 talked about focusing on relationships. Heart Project leader Kristen Miller, last week in episode 42, her Wellness Wednesdays were a day off of math but resulted in higher math scores than classes that focus purely on math. And next week, University professor Heather Batchelor will be sharing on trauma and brain chemistry for resilience, involving students feeling safe and loved before they are able to learn. Yes, as Casey and Jacob shared, it takes time to do this kind of planning and to create these kind of learning experiences, and even more so when teachers collaborate and create interdisciplinary experiences and community-connected opportunities. But we all need to be heading in this direction. We need kids engaged, finding meaning, and wanting to be powerful, positive impacts on the world. So glad dedicated, innovative teachers like Jacob and Casey are showing the way. Thank you for joining me today. challenging it is to make changes inside your own school or community. I've spent years working with schools around the world on creating learner-centered programs, and it always struck me how much schools were able to get done with the right tools and guidance. If you're ready to make changes like this in your own school, let's talk and put together an action plan. Visit educationevolution.org/consult for a free 15-minute call, and let's see if we're a good fit for more work together. Education Evolution listeners, you are the ones to ensure we create classrooms where each student is seen, heard, valued, and thriving. We need you. Let's go out and reach every student today. I'd be so grateful if you'd head over to your podcast app to give a great rating and review if you found this episode valuable. Don't wait. Please do it right now before you forget. I really appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Signing off, I am Maureen O'Shaughnessy, your partner in boldly reimagining education.